industries in Germany warning that the energy shortages as a result of the fact that Germany's trying to, have sanctioned Russia and isn't able to get as much Russian gas as it got before. That's seriously threatening German industry. Germany's union head has warned that entire industries in Germany are actually at risk of collapse because of these energy shortages from Russia. And then you also have Europe in general. European countries are warning about, having to ration electricity in the wintertime. European power prices are hitting record highs. Electricity prices in Germany specifically are up 500% for the year, which is a really stunning number. And, winter is coming, as our Game of Thrones friends would warn. So you have these prosperous European countries, again, like I said, preparing to ration energy consumption. We're used to, of course, doing that in Lebanon, where I live, but not used to seeing the Europeans have to do that. Also, the euro has fallen actually below the dollar. Inflation is getting worse. All of that's to say, I'm curious, first, what are these sanctions doing to the European economy? Obviously, nothing good.
This is a great video. I feel like everyone should watch this to get more informed on what's really going on in the situation with Europe and Europe's full-on aggression against Russia. Now, for time and time again, even if it sounds like progressives and socialists are defending the Russian war with talking about how corrupt Ukraine is, this war should have never have happened. This war should have never started. Putin is particularly definitely wrong for invading invading Ukraine. He made things a lot more worse, especially with media-wise, and especially with morale around the world, just Western actually perspective. But people can argue that it had made the economy so much better with Russia because non-NATO allies are, I won't even call them all allies. I would say that all the countries that are not NATO are still doing business with Russia. Russia economy is booming, the gas industry. The only economies that are not booming right now because of these wars is we look into Europe, our NATO allies, who are doing everything that the United States, my government, is asking, but they are ignoring the people that is in Germany, the people of France. So I can name all these countries. They are suffering. They're having water shortages. They're having electricity problems. It's all scale of so many problems that is going on, and it's being ignored by these people in office because they want to continue to do exactly what the United States requires of them to do, is to honor the sanctions towards Russia. You even have France that's saying that we are losing our gas. They're cutting us off because they don't want to pay Russia in rubles. And Russia said that they want exchanges in rubles now. They don't want the American dollar. They don't want the euro. They want rubles. And they're saying they don't want to. So now they're having shortages. These are, as a socialist, someone who stands for working people, this is why I hate war. We should never be pro-war. Even if this was, people could say this is justifiable just off of the NATO expansion, or saying this is justifiable because Putin invaded. There's no excuse for war. This all would have been solved through diplomacy. And if the U.S. would have kept their claws out of the Ukraine and made them, if they wanted to keep their claws, sign the agreement that was going to stop the Civil War, the Minsk agreement that was going to stop the Civil War within Ukraine that has been going on before Russia even invaded. There's so many steps that could have happened to prevent this. This is just the worst out of the best decisions to be made, honestly, on both sides. And I detest what I'm seeing right now, which I want to get into later, of how they are treating Russian citizens in Europe, not allowing, they're trying to stop them from being tourists, going on vacation. These are regular people. These are not part of the Kremlin. These are not, they do not all support Putin. A lot of Russians don't. A lot of Russians do. It's just like here, a lot of people support Trump, a lot of people don't support Trump. I'm one of the don't support Trump people. No socialist supports Putin. No socialist does. And I'm tired of this rhetoric that if they're Russian, if they support Russia in this propaganda, then they are wrong. This is not it. Everything is so nuanced. There's no black and white. Just like how we learned with Ukraine and my old job, Embassy International, coming out talking about how corrupt they are with using people as human shields.
And why do you think it is that Europe is willing to sacrifice itself, its people, its prosperity for a war that seems to only be benefiting, U.S. policy goals, if even? I mean, is the German public supportive of this? I know that's a lot of questions, but feel free to grapple with whatever aspect you'd like to of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I think your observation that Europe is facing really severe strain across its various countries, and here we mean European Union, Europe first of all, is absolutely true. And and that's very interesting, more and more admitted right now, right? So when you read, for instance, Handelsblatt, right? When you are interested in mainstream German news, fairly well informed on the economy from a sort of center-right perspective, you must read Handelsblatt, right? So it's one of these two things that you must read. And the Handelsblatt has always been absolutely gung-ho about the war, right? And today, interestingly enough, it had two items. One was an article that was actually critical of Zelensky. And more than that, that pointed out that there are people in Ukraine who are legitimately critical of him. So not the usual spiel, which is somebody doesn't like Zelensky, but that means they're pro-Russian or agents, but a very different tack suddenly, which is there are actually Ukrainians who have good reasons to have a problem.
I want to finish off what he's saying, but honestly, this is exactly the type of rhetoric that has literally have been diminished, especially with those that call themselves left here in the United States. They call themselves left. There's never that perspective of how Ukraine is not all as one. They never were. They have always had differences. In fact, their differences is what fuels this civil war. I'm gonna say ethnic Russian Ukrainians and ethnic Ukrainians. They are not all on board with Zelensky as being their guy. And a lot of people have to see and read into what his policies is. And this is not conspiracy. This is true. He has banned a lot of parties. He has banned every party that has opposed him. He has a hit list. I'm going to say it's a hit list. They want to say it's a blacklist, but Ukraine also has a hit list. They have a hit list of journalists that has opposed him. He has allowed all this shelling in the Donbass. He has allowed all this shelling in the Lugansk and Donetsk region. This narrative that Zelensky is the good guy in the situation, it's not true. And there's a lot of eye opening that needs to happen for people to get a full understanding of the situation of Ukraine, and then asking ourselves what side the United States is on.
That was one thing. And then the second item was actually not about trade unions in this case, but about representatives of German industry warning not only that Germany might face a recession, either mild or severe, but that Germany might face what they called deindustrialization of whole sectors of its industry. Now, if you know German political culture, right? Somebody is saying that we are not just facing a recession, which is already, a sheer horror, almost as bad as inflation in German political culture. But actually saying we might look at deindustrialization, that's a sensationally pessimistic statement, sensationally pessimistic. And of course, what they're talking about is the effects of rising energy, in particular gas prices, but not only gas, of course, right? So you have, of course, the situation in Great Britain, which is horrendous and where a massive social crisis is brewing because they are the conservative government, unlike in other European countries has made a decision to basically hand on these elevated energy prices to private households, right? No buffer, nothing, just hit them with it. And then they put on a little band-aid of some targeted aid, right? Which doesn't work well. Various other European countries fall in between, and the effects of all of this are very variegated. They're very complicated. I give you an example. For instance, when the heat wave this summer hit Germany, one thing it did was it made people use ACs more. Now, Germany isn't that big on ACs, but they still had to do it, and it still made a difference. And that, again, actually had an effect on the capacity to not use up energy that they want to have for later, for the fall and the winter. When global warming reduces the depth of German rivers, above all the Rhine,
it's going to cause a lot of issues. Food's going to go up, everything. What we're dealing with here. But the United States will be more in a better situation economically than what Europe will face. You gotta understand, they got majority of their shit from Russia. Russia was their huge client for gas. And now that everyone is pivoting away from Russia towards the US guys, and the US has not supplied any type of I don't know what we call substitute for the gas that they are losing, or the resources they are losing, trying to stay on their narrative. Now we are dealing with what my friend here is saying. I'm really speechless right now, just to tell you the truth. I just really want to like give a more in-depth understanding, like how important this war needs to end, and it can only end. The way it's going right now, it's not like who's winning, who's losing. All this is just lives. It's just lives being lost 24/7. And this has to end. And Ukraine is destabilized. It's being picked apart. And Zelensky was voted in from the start because they thought he was going to bring change. That is what he ran on. He was better than the other guy who was only in office because of the coup. He was never voted in. He was in office because of the coup. This guy Zelensky was democratically elected. And here we are in these shambles because no one wants to come to peace terms. I mean, Russia did mention that they do. They do. But the West doesn't want that. And Ukraine would do what the West wants because Ukraine needs the West to survive. Well, not to survive because they're not surviving, but the Ukraine needs the West for money. So that's what's happening. And you're seeing these governments doing this, giving Ukraine what they want while their people suffer. And this is a very common thing that happens here in the United States, which is why I am not surprised, but I'm pretty sure European people will be surprised about this because it's absolutely fucked up. Definitely check out the rest of this video. It's a whole hour. Again, Breakthrough News just doing what they do, just spreading the truth. And I definitely wanted to bring up this video and show my people so they can understand exactly what's going on there. But other than that, I really hope everybody have a nice day. And thank you so much for watching.
I appreciate what you do because I do believe that the work that you're doing, and so folks watching and listening, please support Jamar, because he and others like him are the linkage that allows all those parts of the body to communicate with each other, to interact with each other, to link with one another. Without this communication piece, we're just all doing our things separately. And so Please support this platform, other platforms, other people like Jamar who are doing this work, because that's what we need to move this movement forward, grow it, build it, and eventually win.